All right. So today's topic is something I was gonna do anyway, and then it just so happened that I watched a piece of Owen's stream number 679, and about 50 minutes in, or just before, like 49 minutes something in, on his stream number 679, "The Lunatic is on the Grass." That's what the name of that stream is. He reads this letter from a guy who asks to be verified as Tar Heel Bear, which I found hilarious. And it's a great letter because it's a letter from a 19-year-old black guy who says he used to bitch and moan about his grandparents making him work in their business, and where he reckons he has to sit in an office and do nothing. And he was got a bit of a porn addiction, which he's now trying to get over as a result of listening to Big Bear, and he also realized that part of the reason he couldn't get where he wanted to get to with the woman he attracts is it's him. He is the issue, and he's got to work on himself, which he's now going to do, or doing already. And he thanked Owen for saying what he says and speaking as he does, because he says, look, if it wasn't for people like you, like young men like me would be totally lost, so thanks for that, you're helping me out. And can I be confirmed as Tar Heel Bear, which I thought was hilarious, and sort of related to the still image I've put for this video. But I was going to talk about it anyway, because just in life you'll go through moments that are tough, and then as you get older, things don't really get easier necessarily. In fact, you take on more, you become, if you're a man, if you're a fighter, if you're a doer, you will take on more stuff as you become more experienced, more able to handle the unknown, more able to handle all sorts of different things. And the more you take on, the more risk, the more effort, the more reward too, so if you're somebody like me that I remember a Calvin and Hobbes strip. I used to love Calvin and Hobbes, and I quite liked the guy who did Calvin and Hobbes, because he never gave interviews, and he pretty much said, like, yeah, I'm not going to, and no, when I'm finished, and that's it. I don't want any more Calvin and Hobbes merchandise and all that stuff. So he's a really cool guy. I forgot his name now, might come to me, but anyway, there was this Calvin and Hobbes strips where it's Calvin and Hobbes on that little go-kart or whatever they had, and Calvin always used to drive and crash, and Hobbes is just kind of going along with it. And when they were in this little cart going downhill, about to ram themselves into a tree or whatever, invariably Calvin would have some philosophical conversation he'd be having with Hobbes, and he was like, man, I don't know why old people move so slow. And Hobbes like, well, what do you mean? He said, well, look at my dad, he's like, go slower. And I'm like, he's old, I mean, he's probably gonna die soon, and the older you get, the closer you are to death, so the older I get, the faster I'm gonna go, because I want to be packing even more stuff in, And Hobbes looks at him like, you should lead an interesting life. And it very much reminded me of myself, because I'm like, I'm not scared of death in any way, shape or form, but I'm thinking like, I've already done a lot. I've jokingly, but I'm starting to, I'm actually serious. I said it maybe 20 years ago already. I said, if I ever write a biography, it should be a trilogy. I should really write a book every 30 years, because I do so much crazy shit that I'll forget most of it, by the time I'm like in my 80s or whatever. I won't even remember half the crazy stuff I've done. And it's kind of true. I mean, I'm 50 now, and I have to struggle to think back, and then it's like, oh yeah, I did that, and then it's like, oh wow, man, there's just so much stuff packed in. But if that's the kind of guy you are, if you're a guy that's doesn't plan to go gently into the night, but working on doing and exploring, learning right till the end, then you're gonna take on more. And as you take on more, you've got more responsibilities, you've got more things to take care of, you've got more people around you that rely on you. So when the hits come, when the bad stuff comes, it's gonna hit you hard, and it's like the bigger you get, it's like Dungeons and Dragons. Again, Dungeons and Dragons sometimes a good analogy for life. You start out as a first level fighter, and you just carry on doing your stuff and fight a couple of orcs, you win. But by the time you're like a 9th level lord, you're not fighting orcs anymore. You're like trying to defend your keep from the enemies of other lands, which include, dragon riders and whatever. So it's kind of like life, And the thing is, when you take a solid punch to the heart when you're like in your early 20s, or like this guy, let's say he's 19, and like, I don't know, maybe you're really in love with this girl, and something happens and he just blows out and it totally fucks up, and you feel like shit, I'm gonna blow my head off just to stop the pain. And some people do, some young guys kill themselves because of a breakup. Some young girls do it as well, and it's a complete waste. It's a complete waste. But the problem is, you don't know that when you're in it, because that's the worst pain you've ever felt in your life. And I'm 50 years old, and trust me, I've had a lot of pain, okay? Especially in the relationship department, because my Asperger's, especially when I was younger, is not conducive to, like, allowing for normal people's weaknesses, let's say, and flaws. And our own flaws are, pretty ingrained. So I'm pretty objective about it. I know, the things about me that make me a pain in the ass. But, generally speaking, I'm relatively easygoing to get along with, apart from my 2 or 3 or 50 little OCD things. But I tell you right away, I'm not hiding those OCD things. I don't pretend to they're different. For example, I like wearing cotton. Like 100% cotton stuff works for me. Some other stuff maybe does, maybe doesn't. And there's some materials I just don't want to touch. Don't want them anywhere near me. Now, how hard is that to deal with? If you live with me, just don't put any of those things on that, if you're going to hug me, don't leave them lying on, don't make the bed sheets out of it. Don't put the pillowcases out of it. Don't buy a sofa that's made out of that crappy material. And you could sort of say, man, it could become a pain in the ass. If that is a big deal for you, don't hang around with me. Go find someone else. It's like, by the same token, if there are things like that, by the way, that affect my wife. She's got something about like cardboard, I think it is. Yeah, it's like if you scratch cardboard, or you cut cardboard, or you chew cardboard, which kids sometimes will chew anything. She gets like all freaked out about it. And I'm like, oh, so now you understand. So if she has a go at me because of my materials that I don't want to touch thing, I'll have a go at her for that. I'll just bring out a piece of cardboard, start scratching it, and go, you see, yeah, that's why I don't want little fluffy crap on my bed. And so that's just a little stupid example. But what I mean is, I've had bad breakups. Everybody who's lived a bit, and especially someone who wasn't any kind of Catholic or Christian in any way, and didn't really have a religion and at all, and just kind of went with things and lived in the world, you're gonna have bad days. You're gonna have bad days. You're gonna have bad months. You're gonna have bad years sometimes. So what do you do when you're like, especially what if you're like, in your early 20s, you haven't had a strong role models to look up to. You haven't had like maybe a good dad that taught you shit. And so here's the thing. It doesn't really matter, okay? Even if you're like 4 foot nothing, bald, spectacle wearing, and weak, do the best you can with what you got. Get some contact lenses, go to gym, get a little bit stronger, pick up a martial art. We used to have a guy in our dojo in South Africa he literally was like 4 foot nothing. He was about the size of like, I don't know, like a 10-year-old, like maybe roughly like a 10, 11, 12-year-old, something like that. Technically really good, really fast, really good. But, he's the size of a 10-year-old. I mean, the fuck's he gonna do to me? Even back then, I wasn't as heavy as I am now, because as you get older, you do get a bit bigger and whatever. I used to struggle to keep weight on. I was like 80 88, 85 kilos, 88, something like that. And I was 6'2". What the fuck can that guy do? But he was quick and he was good and he hit hard when he, if he hit, and it was. But if you block his punch with my wrist, I hurt him, badly. And he didn't quit. He didn't give up. He didn't ask for any special treatment, and he fought hard, and technically it was good, and he moved well, so he got out of the way of the big guys and stuff. Highest respect for him, and that's the thing. Everybody in that dojo respected the guy, because it doesn't matter that maybe you can beat the crap out of him, or even if he's better than you, it doesn't matter, because you just grit your teeth, take the 15 punches to the face, just grab him and ram him into the nearest wall, because you can. But the fact is, he fought. He didn't quit. He didn't ask for any special treatment. And everybody respected him. Everybody thought really well of him. Everybody was, I wouldn't say deferential to him. It's not like we deferred to him, but we certainly were like, you're one of us, man. You're like, you're one of us. Doesn't matter that you're like half our size. And that gives you something. Now you're saying, oh, but what's the cost and reward? Well, what's the cost? Some broken bones, some bruises. Look, if you're going to do a martial art properly, you're going to have broken bones. You're going to have broken bones. You're going to have torn ligaments. You're going to have torn muscles. Shit's going to happen. Now, be careful and try to avoid as much of it as you can, but you're going to get injuries. Just try and make sure they're not life-crippling. That's kind of the important thing. But, if I look at, I've done martial arts all my life, and what's the worst injury that I saw? Some guys lost teeth, broken noses, that stuff, is pretty sort of normal. Some jaw issues, a couple of knee surgeries. Knee surgeries are probably the most, but those weren't. I've certainly heard of people having to have knee surgery because somebody broke their leg in training, but didn't see it myself. I spent 6 months on crutches because a girl stepped on my foot on the lineup. Broke my foot, and it broke badly, and I carried on with a broken foot like an idiot. And then it fixed badly. I went to a shit doctor who didn't sort anything out, and then I had to have an operation and blah blah blah. But that was just a silly accident compared to some of the fights that I had where literally somebody was trying to take my head off and missed because I'm quick, thank God. But what I'm saying is, you're going to get injuries, you're going to get hurt. But if you do martial arts hard enough, long enough, you will gain something from it that is quite undefinable. It's very difficult to put into words, but it gives you a sort of sense of self, a sense of confidence, and a sense of reality that is based in reality. It's based on real world stuff, because you can't argue with a punch in the face. It hurts, and you either get up or you don't, and that's it. And if you're the kind of guy that keeps getting up, good. At least you've got that. The fact that you have to keep getting up 30 times, that's not so good, because it means you're too fucking stupid to dodge. So, you got to have a balance there too. But if you're going to get hit, get back up. And, try not to get hit in the first place. That's even better. But everybody gets hit. So martial arts is a good thing for any man. I would strongly suggest it to any male. Doesn't really matter what martial art you do, just do one. If you become really good at it, they're all okay, they'll do something. Without a doubt, in my opinion, Systema is far more effective than all the other martial arts I've come across and done myself for years at a time. So if you can train in Systema, train in Systema. Don't worry about the bullshit though, they're like, oh, Systema's bullshit, whatever the fuck you see on YouTube videos. It doesn't matter. Those people don't know shit. If you're doing YouTube videos about what martial art is better than what martial art, you don't know a fucking thing. You're just a moron. And you might be good even at fighting in your martial art, but you're still a moron. And it doesn't matter how good you are, there's going to be somebody that's better than you. And not one. There's going to be plenty of people that are better than you. I saw these two morons talking crap about Systema, and they had a little clip of a guy of guys that I personally know, met and trained with. They had a little clip of Val, and they're saying, "Oh, this guy doesn't know anything. Oh, look at him waving. Oh, we can take him." I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. These were just two like pumped up morons, MMA guys or whatever. I don't remember their names. I don't know who they are. And I just thought, I kind of hope that Val sees that clip and comes to your gym. Because I should actually try and find him. I should send Val that clip and then tell him, hey, let's go to the gym. I'll just hold the camera. I don't want to be involved. I'll just film it, because that would teach these guys, such a lesson. And that's what I mean. If you're a moron like that hasn't got a clue what he's talking about, they don't actually know what they're watching. They don't understand what they're looking at. I don't know. It's like a boxer looking at a guy with a gun and going, "Oh, look, he's got a puff smoke thing. It just makes a puff smoke and people fall down. Oh, what a lot of shit. I'm gonna fight him with my fists." It's about that level, It's like you've got no idea what you're getting into, Val can pretzel just about any human being that I've come across without breaking a sweat, and he's not even particularly. How can I say? I wouldn't say he's merciless, but he's certainly not going to lose any sleep if he snaps your neck by mistake. And not that he would make that mistake. He'd probably be intentional if he snapped your neck. So, it's like these guys haven't got a clue. But what I'm saying is, don't worry about YouTube videos of martial arts. Just pick a club and go. And, if it's a bit of a crappy one, try another one. Try 10. Go to 10 different clubs. Take a class in every one of them and see which one feels, you'll know when it's a proper one. Go. So martial arts would be one of the things that I would pick. And if you haven't had good role models and so on, read and learn. You've got the internet now, and I was growing up, we didn't have the internet. Find out who did what are the men that have achieved great things, or things that you admire, things that you aspire to, and keep in mind that whoever you make your hero, he's got some horrific flaws. All right. Take Jean Perisot de Valette, which is a personal inspiration of mine, because he was the leader of the Knights of Malta. And if you read, I mentioned this before, read this book called The Great Siege 1565 by a guy called Ernest Bradford, I think, something like that. Brilliant book, and it describes the siege in detail. And Le Valette, at 71 years of age, wounded in the leg, hardly wearing any armor, fought on the walls all day, and when his men were imploring him to come down, he was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm 71. If I die here, what a great way to go." Because he also knew that by standing on the walls, his men would fight harder, and they did. And then when that fight finished, he came down and organized the fight for the next day. That's the kind of guy he was. And he literally, perhaps single-handedly, as the leader of these men, and not single-handedly because obviously he had his 200, 300 knights, whatever they were, every single one of those men, they were like the 300 of Leonidas, pretty much, But those 300 of Leonidas saved essentially Western civilization, because the Persians stopped invading Greece, because they said, shit, if 300 guys stop us for like 5 days, what the fuck is the rest of them gonna be like? Too much trouble. Similarly, the Knights of Malta stopped the siege that would have taken over Malta, and if the Muslims had taken over Malta, there might very well not be a Christendom. So, and him as the leader was probably the most important person in this fight. So a lot of inspiration for the guy. But was he a perfect man? Not by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, he beat a guy to death for blasphemy. Some guy blasphemed, then he beat him to death, spent 4 months in a hole, literally a hole, that was like kind of his jail, then kind of got out of there. Apparently had a couple of illegitimate kids, both of whom apparently died before he did. Banged some married woman when he was on the island of Rhodes, if I remember right, and apparently had a kid with her or something. He was kind of like, what about the Crusaders that again saved Christendom because they pushed back at the Muslims, kept them there for 200 years, and then that gave the rest of Europe a chance to sort of get their shit together. None of these guys are perfect. because we're all human beings, we're all flawed. So don't go looking for, the ideal. I mean, Vox, for example, talks about Umberto Eco being one of his heroes, and then how he saw Umberto Eco's sort of lack of Christianity or whatever as a very weak argument, and he's sort of like, oh, I used to look up to this guy, and he still does in terms of what he respected him for, his writing and so on. I find it really interesting that Vox finds Umberto Eco likes to be, one of his heroes of grammar and writing and so on. To me, Umberto Eco is bah. But that's because I'm Italian. I understand how Umberto Eco writes. I understand what type of person Umberto Eco was. And it's a very Italian attitude, a very Italian way of doing things. I actually find Umberto Eco a bit boring because he's so showing you what a clever boy he is and how many things he's read and how many things he knows. And he does it very well. Let's not make any bones about it. But to me, it's like, yeah, dude, but I know that, and I know that, and I've read that. And it's kind of like, when a guy is doing a presentation on something, but he's going the extra mile to show you that he knows that. I find that a bit, why don't you just tell me a really good story that's clever, that involves some of those things, and that if I too have read those things, can see further into it. And mind you, Umberto Eco does that too, but in a way that I find a bit pedestrian, to be honest. And Vox obviously has a very different attitude to a different view of it. But then again, Vox is an American, and Vox is my mate, is my friend. Don't get it wrong, but I do think that your cultural background has a lot to do with how you see these things. America is still a pretty new country, really, with the cultural background of the average American is nil compared to the well-educated European. So things that might impress an American person, just water off a duck's back for us. I remember an American architect who majored in history of art, when he came to Italy and he walked past the church and he said, oh, look, they made a mistake on this plaque. It says this church was erected in the year 1200. And, me and the other Italian guy that were with him were like, where's the mistake? No, because in the year 1200, America didn't even exist. I was like, buddy, the world didn't begin and end with America. In the year 1200, we had churches and universities in Europe. What are you talking about? There's plenty of churches in Italy that are over 800 years old. It's like, what are you talking about? The church next to where I stayed in Venice was documented there from the year 800, and it was already there in the year 800. So who knows how far, it's like, in Italy, you spit at an intersection, you're going to hit 3 buildings that are 500 years old or more, so it's like, but that to us is not, we know that, and it's in our bones, it's in our blood, it's in our DNA. So it's not as impressive for us, perhaps to our detriment, right? Because if we were more impressed by it, we would take better care of it. Maybe we would also take better care of our countries, nations, and so on. But anyway, the point was, if you're a young guy, martial arts, I would strongly suggest for it. But the thing is, read, educate yourself on people that you admire and that inspire you, and try to emulate them as best you can in the ways that make sense to you. Of course, if you're a Christian and a true believer, regardless of whatever denomination, but if you truly believe, that is very, very helpful. That is like a superpower, really, when bad times come. I never had that in my life until very, very recently. And I can tell you it's completely different way, when you don't believe in anything but what you can do with your own hands, and maybe there is some kind of intelligence about whatever. It's like a constant fight in no man's land, You're fighting all the time, but you don't know even which side you're on, and it's endless. It's most human beings can't live like that. I'm a bit special, so I did live like that for a very, very long time. But it's infinitely easier to live as a Christian, and not because it's a crutch. Quite the opposite. I don't find Christianity a crutch at all. I find Christianity, because it's based in truth, it's a liberating absolutely a freeing thing, because it's like, oh, I don't have to get everything right. I can't get everything right. It doesn't matter how hard I try, I'm still gonna get shit wrong. And no one's perfect, so all I gotta do is do the best I can and pray and hope God forgives my errors. That's it, and do my best, which I was always doing anyway. But before, it was like, if something did go wrong, I was like, fuck, it went wrong, fuck, I'm gonna try harder, And imagine living like that every day of your life, as opposed to like, yeah, I did my best and it failed. Okay, start again, do some more, do something different. It's a much healthier way of living. And what I wanted to specifically touch upon is that, when you get down, when you're on your own, broke up with a girlfriend that you truly loved, maybe you don't even have a family, or if you do have a family, there are a bunch of assholes, none of them understand you, or they're even against you, they blame you for everything, or they just drain you, like emotionally, psychologically, physically, economically, whatever. The people that are supposed to be on your side, your parents, your brother, sister, whatever, and you're kind of fucking alone, and you're like, getting crushed by life, and go somewhere quiet by yourself. It doesn't matter if it's sitting under a tree in a park. All right, I've done that. I've sat in a tree, under a tree in a park, just fucking thinking about life. And I've got, apparently, I'm told by some unkind people, apparently I've got resting serial killer face or something, because I'm sitting under a tree minding my own shit, thinking about my own life and stuff, literally sitting like this under a tree in a park. And in this park there was a little road that cars, park cars or police cars or whatever could go on this road, but it wasn't like a public road. I'm sitting there on the tree, this car stops, and there's like two cops in, and go, "Hi there." I'm like, "Hi, are you alright?" I'm like, "What?" "Yeah, I'm just sitting under a tree." "Why? What?" "Well, you just look like a bit upset or worried or..." I'm like, "Mate, I'm literally just sitting under a tree minding my own business. So, have you got a problem, or what's wrong?" No, you're not suicidal, are you?" I'm like, "What? No, I'm not suicidal. Just leave me alone, yeah?" Just fuck off. It was just like, what? But I've had that happen to me before. I've been sitting at a restaurant having breakfast by myself, quite happy, quite having a good day, because I was just by myself reading a book. I remember one particular instance. I was reading a book that was interesting to me, and I was having breakfast by myself, during a normal sort of work day or weekday. I've been freelance most of my life, so I don't follow normal hours necessarily, and certainly I didn't back then. This guy walks up to me, or was it a girl? I can't remember who it was, but it was a person that came up to me and said, "Hi, how are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, hi, good, yeah, how are you?" "Is everything okay?" "Why?" "I'm fine, yeah." "No, because you just looked like you were thinking of murdering somebody." To which I was like, "Well, it is a Tuesday, but yeah, just didn't get one in today." Like, what the fuck? I was literally minding my own business reading a book. But apparently I look like I'm planning homicide all the time or something. I don't know. And but let's say that day when maybe you are planning homicide because everybody's really pissed you off. You gotta find something inside yourself, which I find by just go quiet by yourself in a little corner somewhere. Just get inside yourself deep down and know you're in there somewhere. And whatever life has thrown at you, even especially when you can't handle it, when you don't know how the fuck to get out of it, when you don't know what the hell's going to happen next, just know inside yourself. Be calm and know inside yourself. You're there. You're there. And you'll find a way. There's always a way. You've got to find a way. Now, my one piece of warning with that is if you get to that point, you think there's always a way, I'm going to find a way, try not to make that way be of the world. And you do have to read a little piece of the Bible to know what I'm talking about there. You know, we live in the world, but we're not of it. So whatever your solution to get out or to get around or to get over whatever's crushing you, don't make your solution be of the world, which is only concerned with matter, money, physical stuff. Make your solution be in alignment with who you are, in the depths of yourself. Once you know how to do that, even when the whole world is against you, then you'll learn something. And perhaps one of the poems that best expresses this is the poem called If by Rudyard Kipling. So if you don't know that poem, look for it online, print it out, read it a few times. It's a good poem. And another poem that helped me in life quite a lot was the Samurai poem, which is very long, and I only knew pieces of it. And you can find parts of it in a William Gibson novel called Voice of the Whirlwind, and is a piece of that samurai poem. John Williams. And the book is called Voice of the Whirlwind, and it's a really good book. It's a really good science fiction book. Very old, about 30 years old now, but I'm sure you can still find it on Amazon or whatever. Walter John Williams, that's the guy's name. Walter John Williams, very good science fiction writer. His later work, I sort of went off him a bit, but his early work is really good. All right, so if you're a young guy, don't despair. It is all up to you. And if you're a man, you're born alone and you die alone to a certain extent. But have good friends, get a good woman. I did videos before on finding a good wife, so look at that. And I've did another video before about how to not despair and find love or something like that. So there you go. I hope it's useful for somebody, and have a good day.